Hey y'all, it's y'all favorite cozy girl back again with another episode of Robe Chronicles. Today we'll be talking about Survivor season 44, episode 5. Okay. This episode obviously started off with the ending of the last episode where Tika is coming back from tribal and, Jam Jam is upset with Carolyn because he feels like, girl, we was like this and now you're not telling me what's going on. But like I said in my last episode, that people who treat characters like they tell them what to do, those people don't want to work with you. I mean, every so often you get a good goat, but I feel like we're so far past that people really want to determine their own destiny on this show and in this game. So that's why Carolyn didn't really care. She was like, well, the way you spoke to me, the way you treated me, I did what I had to do. Matthew is crying because he's in so much pain from his shoulder, but that he hurt on episode 1. And honestly, it's like you thought you was really Ozzy out there climbing rocks and doing all this stuff. You wanted to have this whole Survivor experience, and it's like this ain't that. Um, Carson and Kane are bonding. Carson's trying to get close to everybody on Ratu because he wants to be able to, use it for when he goes back to his team, and be on their side and then use his bond with Ratu to kind of facilitate his way to the end of the game. Jamie is really just trying to get in where she fits in, and as it stands, she don't fit in, but she's trying to get in and she's trying to fit in, but she don't. Um, Franny and Matt are still crushing super hard. Like they are like, we would totally. He's the type of guy I would date. She's the type of girl I would date. I'm like, oh God. It's funny because the last real, I think, like Survivor relationship that was actually like this, I think, was like Amber and Rob. And they were both so cool. And, they're just not cool. They're just not cool. They're supposed to be like the nerd archetype. So it's like interesting to watch them. And they're like, oh, we definitely have a standing date for Ethiopian food once this is over. But the funny thing is, Matt talks about he just broke up with this girl. And like a lot of people on Survivor, he might leave this island and want his old girl back. I hope he doesn't. I hope him and Franny figure it out. But let me tell you, for some reason, people are on the island, they're in love, probably because they hungry, they stressed, they by themselves. But when they go home, you find out that they had a wife, kids, all types of stuff. So who knows what's really going to happen. Josh and Jam Jam have a discussion in which they bond over coming out and all of that stuff. And they were talking about, because they were like, oh, we don't trust each other. Actually, they didn't bond yet, but they were like, oh, we don't trust each other because Josh is like, I don't trust you because of what you did. Jam's just like, well, I don't trust you because of what you did. But I'm like, it's Survivor. You can't really trust everybody. Whatever happened the night before literally does not affect the next day. Like, especially pre-merge, everything is just, every night stands alone. Like everything that happens sits on its own. Yeah, so every night on Survivor is pretty much a standalone. What happened last night shouldn't affect the next day until post merge. Then you can kind of start being like, okay, we have an alliance and we need to figure out what's going on. Um, then Josh is like, well, it doesn't really matter because I have another immunity idol. And it's like, now, why are you? I mean, he's trying to save himself, but I've noticed that people who make fake immunity idols now have a harder time passing that over. Like back in the day, it worked, but now that lie, it don't work no more on people. But it did work because Jam Jam was scared, and I mean, because he came from a different island, he doesn't know. Plus, he didn't see the immunity note, so when Josh shows it to him, he believed him, but he didn't show Josh the actual idol, so he's kind of a little iffy. Um, but later on, they bond, like I said, about being gay and coming out to their families. And then from there, they make a plan to vote out Carolyn. I like Carolyn. So I'm like, damn, no, Jam Jam, that's your girl. Like, yes, she turned her back on you, but she still kept you. And because she kept you, you should still work with her. That's how I felt. But, you know, they make a plan to vote Carolyn out, and then they go to the immunity challenge, and basically they're tied together. They're supposed to take the water over, fill up the bucket, the thing falls down, then they do a little, thing where they get the ball to the end of the hole. Whatever challenge. Again, they do this challenge all the time. Like I said, season 44, we're not really seeing any new challenges. Maybe we'll see some in the individual immunity, but right now in team, we're not really seeing any new challenges. The winning tribe gets to decide who gets to go on a journey. Lauren and Matt set out for Ratu, and Franny and Jamie set out for Soka. It's crazy because when I watched the episode, I felt like Tika was moving really, really fast, but ultimately they weren't really moving that fast. Like I said, there's edits and stuff, but I was like, wow, Tika's gonna come out on top of this and they're gonna win. But as it stands, that is not what happened. Ratu ended up taking an early lead and getting to the end part and doing really well. And then Soka's right behind him. And Josh and Jam Jam are struggling to get that ball to the end of the thing. And I guess, like, maybe because, like I said, people are coming in well practiced in some of these challenges because they're all very similar now. So a lot of people are coming in pretty practiced in these challenges. And so, because of that, when they get to these challenges, because they're all the same, it's easier for them to complete them. So Ratu ends up winning, Soko ends up coming in second, and Tika loses. So now they're going to tribal council. Brandon, Danny, and Carolyn are sent for the journey. They go on the journey, and Jam Jam and Josh say, hey, if Carolyn comes back, let's all talk to her individually. And if she tells two different stories, then we know where she's at, basically. And that's how they're going to determine, like, voting her out because they think she's going to come back in line. But the crazy thing about the journey, it was a journey, but it wasn't really anything because all that happened when they got there was they got a light feast. So they got to eat, they got to enjoy, they got to relax. It was very different than anything you've seen because for the most part, anytime they've gone on these journeys, something has happened. But it was almost like a reward being selected to go on this journey because all they did was eat. Brandon and Danny immediately bro out and basically leave Carolyn out of any of the conversation. They're literally talking like she doesn't exist and she's not sitting right there and basically planning about how they're going to work together and then tell Carolyn, like, well, you don't look so threatening, so people might take you along to the end. Are they crazy? Carolyn just went and turned on her closest friend because he was talking around her. Why do Brandon and Danny think that's what's going to happen? In fact, I think they were so comfortable because they felt, oh, she's coming on this journey, so she's going to go home. When she gets back, there's nothing that's going to save her, and they're just going to send her home. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to treat her like she exists. Oh, I forgot. After the challenge, um, what's his name has the medics look at Matthew's arm because it's not getting any better. It's still swollen, still in pain. But then, yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, so they're like, oh, Carolyn's not going to be here. When she goes back, those two people are going to talk, and those two people are going to easily vote Carolyn out. And we don't really care what happens to her. We could talk around her. And Carolyn even says, you guys are talking around me and not even including me. And let me tell you, that is the dumbest survivor move anybody can make. Even people who are going on rewards with enemies, include them in the conversation because you don't ever want somebody to feel ostracized because what they're going to do is they're going to go back and be like, hey, we got to get this person out because this little plan you making, ain't going to work. And then they start including Josh, talk about let's us buff guys get together. So me, you, and Josh will work together once it comes to the merge. You saying that because you are sure that Carolyn's going home. If Carolyn doesn't go home and Josh goes home, now what? Dumb, right? But they didn't think about that. They just start broing out and making plans. So when Carolyn goes back, she's upset. So she comes and tells them, like, there was no challenge, there was no nothing. We just went and we got a feast. Then the guys were talking around me like we're creating a group, whatever, and we're including Josh. Josh is like, I have not spoken to them. I don't know anything about that. And it's funny because he's catching a stray because of these people talking crazy. And the truth is, he's going to go home because now that Jam Jam knows that and Carolyn feels the way she feels, they're just going to be like, let's vote Josh out to keep this from becoming a three group. Because even if Josh is like, Jam Jam, I'll work with you, why would he believe that when you came from Soka where you were with Danny? So obviously he's going to believe like maybe you already have a plan and you've just been here pretending. So to me, If I'm Jam Jam, I'm like, yeah, you gotta go. Sorry. And Carolyn already feels that way because they treated her like shit. So she knows that once they get to the merge, they are not gonna mess with her. They've already made that clear. So she is over it. So Josh freaks out. It's like, well, it doesn't matter because I have this idol. And Carolyn, who they think is a dum dum, is like, well, let me see the idol. Let's see it. Yam Jam, have you seen it? Jam Jam's like, no, I haven't seen it. He pulls out the idol, and Jam Jam goes, is this tree mail beads? He's like, no, no, it's not. Jam Jam's like, this is tree mail beads. This is the tree mail beads. Like, you full of it. Then he pulls out the letter for that goes with the idol, and Carolyn's already seen it because he showed it to her last week when he was trying to tell her, I have an idol to play. So they're like, okay, we clocked your number, Josh. You lying and you don't have anything. So they're like, you're going home, basically. I mean, he's hoping that he's still good, but they know he's a liar. They know he doesn't have anything, and they're getting ready to vote him out. Then here comes Jeff rolling on his boat to the Tika camp. And he's like, what's going on? How do you guys feel? Where are we at? What's the energy? And he was like, well, y'all don't have to go to tribal council because we had to pull Matt from the game because he is too injured to go on. And I'm like, dang, I feel like there was a guy who dislocated his shoulder last season or the season before. And I feel like he stayed. I can't remember now. Like, I feel like those 2 seasons were a blur, but I feel like he stayed for a little bit or tried to stay, but his shoulder must have been way too damaged because he could not stay. And it was just funny because Matt going home literally saved Josh because there's no way Jam Jam would have sided with him after hearing what he heard from Carolyn about Brandon and Danny and wanting to work with Josh. And so it's crazy because next episode is the merge, which kind of sucks because it feels like the merge is happening very quickly. But the truth is we are down to 26 days. We are already down to, I think, 13 people. So after this episode, we now have 12. So it's about merge time. So I'm just excited. I am actually enjoying this season so much. Like, even though Matt went home and he wasn't voted out and all this stuff, but I feel like the episodes still had so much anticipation and high energy. Like, this season is really doing what needs to be done. It's new, right? It's a new school season. It's missing some old school elements that I really, really love. But I think they're doing a really good job of actually making it interesting and something people want to watch and be excited for. So I'm excited to get to the merge next episode. That's what they showed us is coming up. I'm excited to see how people play and work together and what alliances are formed because there's people who I think should want to work together, but you don't know if they will. There's also people who you would think there's no way they'd ever work together, and maybe they will, right? So I'm kind of excited to see how this plays out. I'm excited to see what's to come. Like I said, this season of Survivor has actually been very, very interesting. So please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you agree with, disagree with, how you're feeling about these players this season. I mean, we're getting a lot of backstory. I didn't mention that before. We're getting a lot of backstory. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about backstory. It doesn't make me like anybody more or less. I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, I could do with it. I could do without it. But yeah, so tell me what you think. And we'll be back for episode 6, The Merge. See ya. Bye.